If you have a hard time with boundaries, how might your life be different if you could say no as easily as a joyful yes? I'm Love Coach Mariya, and for over a decade now, I've been encouraging folks to empower their compassion so it's big enough for ourselves as well as others, and so our boundaries can become healthier than ever. You're listening to Empower Your Compassion, and on this show, we'll be unlocking transformative insights to help you reconnect to your true yes, so you can say no from that more expansive energy and get more of what you want in your relationships and your life without sacrificing your compassion. Are you ready for more love? Let's grow. Hello and welcome back. We're diving right back in, continuing with this mini-series on the Gates method for developing healthy boundaries that feel good. As a quick recap, the Gates method stands for ground, assess, trust, express, and steward. So those first three steps are really internal checks before you even say anything. And today we're going to talk about the trust element. So before we even get there, you will have grounded in your body and your values. You will have assessed your capacity and your true yes. And now what we're going to talk about is trusting in the other's ability to manage. There are two big reasons where our failure to do this impedes our boundaries all the time. The first is when we don't trust an other person's capability. So if they come to us needing our help, or maybe even we perceive that it's some desperate need, and maybe it's not quite as desperate as we think, if we rush in to rescue them, we're not actually helping them. We're operating on a lack of belief in their capability. So how this might look is someone says, hey, can you help me with something? And you're like, yeah, let me do it for you. Or even they might say, oh my gosh, I'm really struggling. And you rush in to say, oh my gosh, let me fix it for you. And the belief here is that they are some poor, helpless thing that isn't capable of handling the situation. And again, they might actually believe that themselves. But if we buy into that delusion of powerlessness, we just enable it. On the flip side, when we remember the deeply divine and expansive power that is within each of us, even when others forget their own, when we carry that for them, that's when we can really re-empower them and help them reconnect to their power in a way that's actually helpful. I'm not saying don't be helpful. I'm saying don't rescue people, especially at the expense of your own boundaries and limits. It doesn't do anyone any good for both of you to be depleted. The best way that you can help and support someone is by recognizing their power. And so when someone is struggling with something, if you just go like, hey, demigod, it looks like you've got a problem. What are you going to do about it? And how can I help? See the distinction? So circling back to establishing our own boundary, if someone asks for something that we don't have the capacity for, we ground so that we can come back into our alignment. We do a quick assessment of our capacity and reconnect to our true yes so that we know that our choices are in service of that. And we trust that the other person can handle it. And then that's when we get to express the no, which we'll talk about in 2 weeks on my next solo episode. But for now, I said there were two main reasons that this trust element is really important. Aside from not trusting in the other person's capability, another really big hindrance to maintaining and honoring our own boundaries is when we don't trust that they're going to be able to handle their disappointment in a way that doesn't make it our problem, and we don't trust that we can handle the discomfort of their disappointment. And so this is where we will often say yes when we really should be a no, or we say no, but then they try and twist our arm and they succeed. I'm telling you, guilt trips, whether we send ourselves on them or get taken on them by others, are probably the biggest cause of our own boundary violations. And here's the thing. I'm not saying don't help people. I'm not saying don't care about people or have compassion. But I am saying don't let someone else's story about your resource management mean anything about who you are or your worthiness. So trusting in the other's ability to manage means you trust that they can handle whatever challenge they're dealing with, and you trust that they can handle their disappointment, and so can you. And one of my favorite tools for responding to that type of arm twisting or boundary pushback, which by the way can often look like begging, questioning, guilt trips, is to hold gently firm in your boundary and say something to the effect of, "I'm sorry you're disappointed. Do you want to talk about that?" Or if you don't want to sound like you're being apologetic, which I think sympathy and apology are different, even though we say sorry for both, you can say, "It seems like you're disappointed. Do you want to talk about that?" And you can also have a boundary around how they talk about that. Chances are they're not going to want to actually get vulnerable and just talk about their feelings, especially if they're the type of person that is inclined to give you a hard time about your boundary. But you can clarify that you are available for holding space as long as they're expressing themselves with ownership and not a lot of blame or accusation, because it's not about you. You've made your decision. They're having a feeling about it. They can talk about the feeling. They can get somatic and talk about where it's showing up in their body. You can even invite them to do that if you're resourced for it, of course. Or you can invite them to call upon whatever stories in their background or experiences in their past that is maybe getting triggered or activated in this exchange. And you can just, hold their hand and be with them in their disappointment without it meaning anything about you, without it being your fault, without you needing to cave on your boundary. And you can stay in connection with them. It's an option anyway. I'll talk a little bit more about that when we get into the S part, which is steward your precious resources, because that's all about ongoing maintenance and follow through. But while we're here today on the trust and some of these patterns that enable some dysfunction, I just want to point to a really pervasive dynamic in our culture, which is this sort of normalized, enmeshed codependence. This idea that it's so romantic that I can't tell where I end and you begin, and swoon and gag. That's not healthy. And I know that it can feel really good in a new romance to have that sense of enmeshment, but it's actually a good thing that wears off. And it can also be, not always, but often kind of toxic in family dynamics too, where you're not allowed to be an individual. From that worldview, from that lens that this enmeshment is the normal and the ideal, the part where boundaries is actually really individuating, because it is where I end and you begin, that almost feels violent to disrupt the unity of that enmeshment. And that's part of the reason you get so much pushback on your boundaries. And there's this other pervasive theme that's woven into that, which is basically misplaced responsibility. This idea that I'm not responsible for my feelings, you are. You made me feel this way. But also, you're not responsible for your feelings, I am. I'm so sorry I made you feel that way. And so we run around in all of this deeply disempowering beliefs that kind of perpetuate cycles of dysfunction. In the healthier dynamic, we have appropriate responsibility, where we are each responsible for ourselves, for our choices, our outcomes, and our experiences, and we are accountable to each other for the impact that we have on one another. And I know that sounds blurry, and it kind of is. It takes practice to be able to see what's mine and what's yours. But even just knowing that some stuff is mine and some stuff is yours is going to set you up for more success. And so again, by being responsible for what's yours, choices, outcomes, experiences, and your own resource limits, your boundaries, and trusting in the other to handle what's theirs, choices, outcomes, experiences, boundaries, we set the relationship up for success. And I'll tell you, the first time I encountered truly healthy boundaries, it was mind-blowing and heart-opening. Prior to that, No was usually something that either came with a lot of apology or a bit of harshness. But in this case, it was just really clean and light. Just no. They would maintain friendly eye contact and stick around, and it was like alarmingly disarming. And interacting in that space, it was with the local community who practiced something called authentic relating. But I started to realize that, gosh, if they're so comfortable saying no, then their yeses are probably sincere, which means that I don't have to wring my hands questioning each yes with, "Are you sure?" deeply concerned that they would only resent me later. And the honesty in their no's also left me feeling safe to be upfront about my no's without worrying about their feelings getting hurt or having them try to twist my arm. And overall, that felt like a whole lot of safety and trust. And that really motivated me to up my boundary game, because trying to be nice wasn't cutting it. As I'm sure you've heard, there's a difference between nice and kind. And I absolutely believe the boundaries that come from empowered compassion are one of the kindest gifts we can give to our loved ones. If you would like to learn more about the Gates method, as well as some deeper insights and perspectives and tools, please go to boundariesthatfeelgood.com and download the free guide that'll really help you start building some healthier foundations. Next week, I'll have my friend Jess Sargis on for a very empowering discussion. And following that will be my next solo episode where we will get into the E of the Gates method, which is express your no without disconnecting. While you're here, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this show so we can spread the love. Wherever you're at on your journey, I send you so much love and courage. Namaste.